All right, Mr. Berkowitz, you're all set. Have a good meeting.
Great, thank you, Seth. Welcome everyone to the SHARC Pier 44 Commission meeting. First order of business is the roll call, and I note that Howie and I and Josh are here. Karen Connolly, Jen O'Neill, and Patrice May are out of town this week, not able to join us. So we have a quorum. Especially want to welcome Josh. He's the new liaison for Commission on Disabilities. Appreciate your participation, Josh. And do you want to take a minute and just tell us about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on this call and meeting. So I'm on the Commission on Disabilities in Scituate, and I'm a practicing physical therapist currently. And yeah, just trying to help out in Scituate, and just excited to be here. So thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me just refer to our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. And I always appreciate that our respect and adherence to those standards. Christine, you want to introduce your team?
Yes. So, hi, Josh. Hi, everyone. Christine Wilson. I'm the project manager on behalf of Copley Wolf. We are the landscape architects and the lead consultant on this project. We have sub-consultants. We have Leon Davis from BIA Studio. He is an architect. And we have Ryan DuPont from GZA. Ryan is a civil engineer, and he is the project manager for GZA. There's a whole team kind of behind Ryan, from waterfront structural engineers to permitting specialists, et cetera, et cetera. So we're very fortunate to have both BIA Studio and GZA working very closely with Copley Wolf on this project. With Copley Wolf, I also have Jim Haru here. He is the principal at Copley Wolf, and then Madeline Kirshner, who is the landscape designer on this project. So I think that is my whole team, Paul.
Great, thanks, Christine. And I see it's great to have a number of members of the public participating, and your participation is certainly welcome. We want your feedback and guidance and opinions, and so there'll be an opportunity certainly for you to provide comments. Next, I circulated the minutes of January 26th. Josh, you can abstain if you prefer, but I'll make a motion to approve. I get a second, Howie?
I'll second.
Any comment, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approved. All right, now for the marquee item on the agenda, an update from Copley Wolf on the online survey, design concepts, outreach, and preparation for the March 7 public meetings. Christine.
Great, thank you. And I have Melanie just try to help me. I accidentally closed out of my presentation just now, so I'll just need a moment to just reopen it back up. But this is the fourth meeting we're having with the SHARC committee, and share my screen. Sorry. Can you see it now?
We can, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. So this is the fourth meeting, and again, as I mentioned, Copley Wolf GZA BIA Studio has been working on this project since October. That was our first meeting with the SHARC. It was our kickoff meeting. We met in December to review our work investigating the site, taking an inventory of the site conditions and analyzing the property as well as zoning requirements, etc. And we started to develop concepts. So we developed 3 concept alternatives, which we vetted initially with a small group of town staff right before the holidays. And then on January 17th, we met with the town design review team to vet again those 3 alternatives before we put them out to the public with the last SHARC meeting at the end of January. And following the last time we all were together here, we put out an online questionnaire, and that ran for most of February. And we're here tonight to talk about the responses we received to that survey and also discuss next steps for the project. So there's a QR code here. We do have a project website, a web page that has links to previous meeting information, and then concept alternatives, etc. So we're continuously updating this project website so that everyone has kind of easy access to the information, at least online. So kind of the agenda for tonight, again, online questionnaire feedback, talk a little bit about what we're seeing emerging as the site concept. And then because Josh is here tonight, want to touch on universal design principles, and again, talk about next steps for the project schedule. So to start off with the online survey, we were very, very surprised, to be honest, by the amount of responses. We received between February 3rd and February 28th, those are the kind of all the dates in pink here. Over the course of those 3.5 weeks, we received 1,362 responses, which is honestly the most Copley Wolf has responses we've ever gotten to a survey. And it just really shows how kind of interested in this park or this property people are in town, but just also, I mean, what you all are doing on the SHARC and the town to just promote this process and to, you know, get people involved is just really wonderful to see. It's really helpful to us as the design team to have those many voices give us feedback. It's just awesome. And it's not over. We have, you know, tonight we're going to be going over what we've heard so far in response to the 17 questions we had in the survey. But on Tuesday, so here we are today on the 2nd, on Tuesday, we're going to have at the Scituate Library Community Room 2 in-person sessions. So there, I'm going to get into that a little at the end of the presentation, but kind of summarize, this is where we are and kind of in this month and a half of engagement following the development of the concept alternatives, and just like huge thank you to everyone who took the time to respond to the survey. The survey again was based on these 3 concepts, which we dug into in greater detail in the last meeting. So if you want more information about that, you can, you know, go back to the presentation, it's up on YouTube, or to get to the project website to dig into these concepts a little more. But this is what we had going into February and what the online survey was really structured around getting feedback on these 3 alternatives. We've had people ask, well, can we take a little bit of different concepts? Like, do we have to go forth with one concept, or can we kind of mix and match? And the answer is absolutely. That's what we've gotten a lot of feedback of. Oh, I like this about this one and this about this one, and so it won't be literally any one of these 3. Not only are we listening to people and trying to push and pull and create a design that really responds to input we've received, but we are also, our team, our technical experts are pushing and pulling as needed when it comes to grading and utilities and permitting constraints, et cetera. So I just wanted to say that here are these three initial kind of cartoony sketches to just be as a jumping off point. And we're kind of working as a group to advance into kind of this emerging concept, you know, in the coming days and weeks. So I'm going to go through, this is the first slide, which has the first three questions on here. I'm going to go through each of the 17 questions, very much right in order of how they were in the presentation. I'm going to pause after every kind of couple questions, just to open it up for a questions discussion, but know that there's kind of 17 questions. The first few were kind of trying to figure out who is responding to this survey. Then we have ones about programming, ones about those site design concepts, and then finally more focused on the pavilion. And so I'm going to hand it over to Madeline at one point to talk about programming, and then Leanne at the end to talk more about the last three questions, which were about the pavilion. So to start it off, the first question was, what was your zip code? And there were over 12,000, how do I say this? Almost 13, almost everyone was from the town of Scituate. The other three zip codes, there were less than 10 people from the neighboring zip codes, let's say. So, and they were all just from the area. In other words, what I'm trying to say is people from Boston that filled this out, or out of state, et cetera. It was very much folks from the community responded to this. So right here at the top, answered versus skipped, this just tells us that 1,343 people answered the zip code question. 19 people, for whatever reason, skipped it. So, you know, maybe those 19 people are from Boston, I don't know. But that just gives us a sense of who is responding to this questionnaire. So very exciting to know that it was mostly people from the community, of course. For the second question, how did you hear about it? And this is just, we're interested, what's working in terms of publicizing the survey? How do people find out about it? And I can see that social media, the town website, word of mouth in Scituate just is really strong. And that's how people found out about this questionnaire. We did have a town flyer that was on the last two slides ago, this one here. So a couple of people did see the flyer, or also the message board that was out. For question 3, do you currently use the unofficial harbor walk? And when we say unofficial harbor walk, we specify this in the survey. This is just an abbreviated version of the question. That just, the question was, do you use the unofficial harbor walk that's from like Cole Parkway all the way out to the lighthouse? And so over or 70% of the respondents said, yes, I walk that route. Others said that, no, I don't utilize it. Some even said they bike. And so, and then we can dig into that, but people said other, and usually people were just using that as the opportunity to kind of provide a little more insight, which was super helpful that people took the time to type out responses. So interesting, I thought it was really interesting that people are already walking that route from Cole Parkway to the lighthouse, even despite the sidewalk is fairly narrow, there's no buffer with a roadway, it could be safer, people are already using it. So that lets us know that it is an important thing to address that route. And people just walk in the area. So question 4, what type of events would you attend in the park? These are just 8 ones that as a team we threw out there for people to rank. So this is rank voting. You can drag up to the top, you know, the one that came out the highest ranked, I guess, was Farmers Market. And the lowest one happened to be wedding ceremony. But as Madeline's going to get into in a minute, these ranked choices for the event or programming were, it was interesting to see, but we actually got a lot more detailed responses with the open-ended question related to programming. People took the time to write out full paragraphs and had some pretty great ideas. So again, thank you to everyone who took the time to do that. One question, and this is more like furnishing and probably wasn't the most clear, but what type of seating would you like in your new park? We were trying to figure out, picnic tables. Do people want to, eat? We've thrown out the idea that maybe you get food over, take out at the tavern and come over. Do you want kind of tables to eat at? You want benches to sit at? And yes, those came out. Of course, honestly, not surprisingly, is the most popular. The lowest ranked one was bleachers, and I think just reading through the comments that kind of two things came into play there. One, people didn't really understand, I think, what we meant by bleachers. I think we were kind of referring to kind of stepped seating, not like what you see at a sports field or anything. But the other point is accessibility, which is really valid. So that's why kind of bleachers was ranked the lowest, which is again understandable. I'm going to go on to what site features would you like to see in the park? And the boardwalk came out the highest. And this was again echoed in the written comments that everyone was just, how do I say this? There are a lot of just people are highly in favor of the boardwalk. And we that was really kind of a strong point that came out of the concept that did show that boardwalk. So I think, that we'll get into it kind of a little later on, but that was one thing that really clicked with us, is this community really likes having this element to walk along at the water's edge. So important thing to include in our design. The open lawn, we heard a lot about having a continuous open lawn. People were in favor of the designs that didn't kind of really break up the lawn spaces, but had a really open lawn area. So that's one that also came out pretty high. And then plaza space, we're talking about food trucks, as well as other, smaller events. And so having a place for those food trucks and maybe pop-up little pavilions for small events was important. And then finally, this is one with the pavilion. How would you like to use the proposed outdoor pavilion? People happen to rank, sit and enjoy the water the highest. But before I'm going to turn over to Madeline to talk a little more about the open-ended programming question. But before I do so, just because I'm kind of moving through these, not quickly, I'm taking my time, but with the answer to skip, does anyone have any questions about what we presented so far in terms of the first 7 questions? Okay, I see Howie's good. Can't see everyone's faces, so feel free to type up.
Any members of the public have a comment at this point? Great. Thanks, Christine.
I'm sorry, Mr. Berkowitz, you did have a hand. No, you're good. Sorry.
Yeah, it looks like Scott has his hand up. Scott Horn.
Yep. Scott, you should be able to unmute yourself. Just name, address, and go ahead with your comment. Scott, do you want to say something? He may have just.
You hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, Scott.
You there?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Scott Horn, 396 First Parish Road, Friends of Scituate High School Sailing, President of the board. Do we have an idea of the age group of the respondents for the survey?
We do not. I think that is a lesson learned from this survey, Scott, is future surveys, we probably should include a question about age range if that's of interest to this group.
Okay. That was my only question, just something personal, interesting. So,
Thank
Yeah.
you, Scott.
So
Adam,
with
up next.
next, I'm going to hand it off to Madeline to talk about question number 8.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine. So with the open-ended programming, 581 people entered responses, and it was very cool to see because we know that we're designing this passive park space that will be brought to life by the programming that serves the Scituate members. So just some things that jumped out to us. We sorted based on overarching themes. About 60 people, they expressed food trucks. So in addition to the pavilion serving arts markets and some daytime events, space for food trucks or tents to pop up. So that tells us that our plaza should be able to accommodate such uses, furthering public events like—
they didn't ask in this.
Oh, sorry.
Scott, you're not muted. Did you have something to say? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Madeline.
Gotcha. Keep going. So just thinking about public events that can really serve the community. But in addition to that, we understand that the water use is kind of the main driver for why people want to come to this site. So making sure that we appropriately serve the water use needs, understanding that we're located right next to the Jericho boat launch, but that people really want to get as close to the water as possible, and making sure that water access is accessible for all. It's really important to us. And lastly, we saw a play quite a few times related to family-friendly activities. While we do not plan to put a large playground structure on the site, we do want to have programming that allows for families, parents to come out here, their kids will be entertained. So looking at precedents like the Harbor Fog along the Boston Greenway, where it could be some sort of artful, sculptural, interactive element that doesn't necessarily have to be a playground, but that's engaging for all users. So those are some of the big themes that emerged. Yeah.
Thanks, Madeline. Yes, so food trucks, surprised actually to hear that so loudly, I guess, to question 8. The public events, the various water uses, access. I mean, we've also heard from Waterways Commission and some other folks that, kayak, small, inflatable boat tie-up is of interest. But then the family-friendly activities, that was loud kind of throughout the survey, which is awesome. So we'll make sure to be designing space and features for folks of all ages. So moving on, the next kind of series of questions were more tied to those concept alternatives, the 3, 1, 2, 3. And for each of them, the green bars actually are tied to concept number 1, the darker blue to concept 2, and the yellow to concept 3. So the question number 9 was, do you have a preferred pavilion location? Concept 1, it was on the north side of the site, the framing Hatherley Road. That view down Hatherley as you're looking out into the water is currently blocked by the Pier 44 building, but we imagined a pavilion that could really frame that view. Alternatively, we could locate it instead of the north side, we could locate it on the south side. We had it kind of out over the water. And then the third option, which was ranked the highest, was more in the middle of the site along the water's edge. People felt it was really balanced in concept 3. And we also heard folks say they didn't want it too close to the parking, concerned about safety with children and the parking lot being an eyesore, et cetera. So the concept 3 with it more in the middle of the site out on the water's edge was ranked the highest. And then for question 10, do you have a preferred condition along the water's edge? Again, boardwalk, like I said before. So it's this question, that previous question, and then in responses, a lot of people were big fans of the boardwalk. So that came out the strongest as opposed to that boardwalk bleacher, those kind of the steps down into the water, and then the kind of overlook nose. So some people did really like the nose, or at least some kind of way to kind of punch out over the water. If that makes sense. So things we're definitely keeping in mind. To move forward, just which parking layout do you prefer? And similar to the last two questions, that yellow is popping out ahead of the others. So people were responding well to the parking being on the north side, closest to the marina, more so than the more spaces, which were down on the south side, or the kind of angled parking down. Kind of also come more to the south of the site. So in the written responses, we'll get to this in a minute, but people are pretty vocal about thinking it was most appropriate by the marina, and the response to question 11 definitely reflects that. So we're going to get into parking a little more in a moment, but I think I have a couple other questions first. But that's not it on parking, so I'll be back on that one. Question number 12, which was very literally ranked the three concepts. Not surprisingly, based on last few questions, concept 3 was ranked the highest. But we really enjoyed reading through the responses to question 13, which was tied to question 12. It was for the question that you ranked as most preferable. Why? What did you like best about it? And these were 4 themes that we saw come out of the responses. Again, 772 people took the time to type out something to us, which was, again, thank you so much. One theme, which I've kind of already mentioned before, was the continuous uninterrupted lawn areas, allowing for walking, for play, integration of site with nature, more permeable area, etc. A second kind of big theme, which was the access to the water, the continuous boardwalk along the edge with varying experiences, like the sunrise steps. We'll get into that a little later. This swings, kayak dock. People really in favor of having those elements. 3 was the balance of parking, aiming to serve appropriate site program needs while avoiding kind of eyesore of too many spaces. Again, I'll get to parking a little more in a moment. And then the site layout. The people like the pavilion in the middle of the site, felt balanced, allowing for programming on either side. And they like the small plaza for events like yoga and that appealing view from Hatherley Road. That was one that people liked, especially about concept 1. So again, we're trying to kind of pull out, because different people like number 1 or 2 or 3 for different reasons. So to be able to kind of understand, dig into a little more and understand why, to see how we can progress the design further in response to what people like is really wonderful. So, okay, so the question number 14 was really open-ended, just like, what additional feedback do you have for the team? What else should we know? A lot of what people wrote was kind of a little redundant, like they had said it before, but they were emphasizing it, which is good. Especially, people put things in caps and all of that, and we hear you, we're reading every single one. Someone on our team, we just closed it officially yesterday morning. So we're all individually kind of catching up on all the written responses, but someone on the design team has, at least one person has read every single response to this survey. One of the most prevalent topics for this was, of course, parking. And some of the kind of themes that kind of came out was, again, I mentioned this already, locating the marina near the parking. Locating the parking next to the marina. Ooh, got this. Okay. Different reasons, kind of what people were saying that. We came to realize it was to be considerate of the neighbors to the south. It also put the parking kind of off to the side to really maximize the park area. And it, from a safety perspective, it limited pedestrian interaction with vehicles. Like I mentioned, people were concerned about the proximity of the pavilion to the parking area. In terms of the number of parking spaces, there were folks who asked for more parking and more than what we showed. But the reasoning people were giving was for events, and also as non-locals, which meant like they live not within walking distance. So we are working with the town to determine kind of off-site options. I think we've talked about this previously, and figuring out, okay, what events would this site support, and how can we manage transportation for those events, and how can we provide parking within walking distance, close by, if not right on this property. So I just want to make sure the people who are asking for more parking, when you know that we are looking into it and even seeing how we can maybe fit a couple more spots in that parking lot. But I also want to note that there were a lot of voices that said less parking and even no parking on this parcel. So we are trying to balance what we're hearing from all of the different community members. And as we do that, as we're trying to balance the desire, for more or less no parking on this site, we are, again, want to keep in mind that proximity to Cole Parkway, and again, and other maybe parking opportunities in walking along this, unofficial, hopefully in the future official Harbor Walk. And also other things that kind of came up was making sure the site was designed in such a way that visibility into the parking lot, so you could see if the parking lot was full, is maintained, as well as being able to say that you are not able to get out of the car to enjoy the water. At least you could drive in and get close to the water, which is kind of what concept number 3 was also showing. So we did hear that as well. Again, being able to get close to the water, and that even if you're not able to get out of the car. So finally, sustainability concerns. People want less or even no parking to minimize the amount of paving on the site to reduce stormwater runoff. And as we've actually known before, there's more grant opportunities available for nature-based solutions and a site that provides public access opportunities and recreational opportunities. So that's topic that came, the first one, parking. The second one is the open view to water. Third one was site accessibility for all. And the fourth one was connection with nature. Again, those are just most prevalent. We had heard many other things that we are taking into consideration as we move forward. And I'm actually gonna pause that here before I turn it over to Leanne, Paul, see if anyone else has any questions on the commission.
Any questions from the commission? Any questions from the public at this point?
I don't have any questions.
Great, thanks, Josh. Yep, let's keep rolling then.
There we go. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Leanne. Leanne, you're up.
Thanks, Christine. So I'll echo what Christine was saying. We've just gotten an incredible response to the survey that not only did we get a high number of responses, but of the responses we got on the pavilion concepts in questions 15, 16, and 17, a majority of those comments also, those commenters also wrote in fairly extensive feedback. So as Christine said, we're still reading through and digesting all of that, but we are at a point where we've been identifying some themes that we can share. So question 15 was where survey respondents were asked to rank the 3 concepts and choose a preferred. And you can see here that it was very, very close. All 3, I think, had a very equivalent amount of support. Concept 1, which was the wave structure, just edged out the harborside gable slightly. And concept 2, the reflected pier, trailed the other 2, but not by a great deal. So I think that was really interesting to see, just that there's sort of a very broad level of support for all 3 schemes, I guess you could say. So especially, I think, because the 3 schemes were so even in the responses, that puts even more emphasis from the design team's perspective on what people wrote in, because that's really how we can glean what they were responding to in each of the 3 concepts. And in developing the 3 pavilion ideas, we really did try to have distinct approaches to give the community different design options to respond to. So that was partially by design. So in question 16, which was an open-ended question that had written responses, we got almost 700 written responses. So there's quite a bit there that we're still digesting. But some of the common words that we're seeing quite frequently, I think, point to what people are responding to in each concept. So concept 1, which was the wave structure, we're seeing these words quite a bit: modern, organic, flowing, natural. People mention water, and probably the most prevalent of all of these words is unique and iconic. And that was something that we heard early on from the SHARC committee, was that there was really a desire for the pavilion structure to be something unique that really could represent Scituate. So concept 2, the words we're seeing are modern, functional, natural light, which makes sense because that scheme, I think, put the most emphasis on the skylight in the roof system. And we also start seeing things like fits in with surroundings, simple, located on the pier. A lot of people, I think, associated this pavilion because of the site concept that it was shown on with the pier scheme. And then timeless and cost effective. And then concept 3, there's the words are timeless, traditional, fits with surroundings, simple, classic, and again, cost effective. And one thing that's kind of interesting here is you'll see that concept 2 sort of bridges some of the terms that you see in concept 1 and concept 3. So again, we're digging through how many of the respondents mention these words, and of these themes, really, I'd say the most frequently cited are modern, unique, iconic, and traditional New England. So we're looking at how we can take those specific themes and develop them into the consensus scheme as we move forward. And then moving into question 17, which was another open-ended question. Is that on the next slide, Madeline? So here we just asked for any additional feedback on the pavilion design, and this was just a very open-ended. If you haven't had the opportunity, we'd like to hear any other comments. You can see another 350 plus people wrote in these responses as well. So a couple of themes that came through both in 16 and 17 that we really want to highlight that we think are really going to be applicable to any concept. And as I said, we're really looking at taking all this feedback and developing it into a consensus concept moving forward that might not be exactly any of the 3 that we've shown to date, but it is worth noting some of these themes that the whole community kind of as a whole really brought to the forefront, and that's that the pavilion be resilient, and that's very much in line with how our dialogue started on the pavilion. looking at how this waterfront site and the materials we use and the design of this roof is going to react to the waterfront condition that we have. And that's not limited just to the pavilion either. That's the whole park design is going to be designed with these things in mind. Low maintenance was definitely a priority that we've heard loud and clear, both from the SHARC group and also from this survey. Sustainable design has been highlighted as a priority, and that's something that we're going to definitely be working into the design moving forward. A number of people mentioned solar, and so certainly renewable energy is something that we're going to be considering as we progress, and also sustainable materials, which is again something that we're keenly interested in progressing. There's also quite a few respondents who mentioned universal design, and that's not just elderly. We had people commenting about kids, families, people with limited abilities. So that's also something that we wanted to highlight. And then there's also quite a few respondents who mentioned specifically the need for public restrooms. So that was a piece of program that we've included in the project, and I think we got confirmation that that really is a priority for the community. So those are the pavilion questions. Is there any questions or comments from the group on the feedback we've received?
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about going forward. So, as Leon said, Christine, will have an emerging concept after our meetings on next week, our public meetings. We want to, take the comments and all the feedback and develop a concept that emerges. It may well be that that concept will show a location for a pavilion without picking a particular pavilion style. There's a lot of support for all three concepts for the pavilion. And so I think, again, for town meeting on April 10th, we don't need to pick or propose a particular pavilion. That'll, the actual vote is on the funding from CPC for the next phase, which is pre-construction. And my expectation is, again, looking at the comments and then we'll get more deeply into cost estimates, that will inform what we propose for a particular type of pavilion. So I don't see us picking a pavilion, for the April 10th town meeting.
Paul, before I'm gonna move forward and show, as you just noted, we need to hear from folks on Tuesday at the public info sessions. We'll be, talking to people and getting more input, and from that point, we'll be developing or a more refined concept. And what I mean is just, as you said, emerging, like how does this concept get kind of pushed and pulled based on the input we've received over the last month, and again next Tuesday. I do have a diagram that kind of shows some of these emerging ideas that I'll share, but just want to open up. This is the last question of the survey, and so any final questions about the survey or what Leon just went through before I move forward?
I have no questions.
Any members of the public have any questions that haven't been addressed yet? Okay, not hearing any. Go ahead, Christine.
Great, thank you. So here's this diagram I was just referring to, and it's just a bubble diagram. We're again still digging through all the feedback, talking to people on Tuesday, and then internally our team is doing a little more technical studies, looking at the grading, and that's gonna, of course, inform the design as well. So we'll have a site design that is more developed than the simple bubble diagram, but wanted to kind of show a little bit spatially on a plan, kind of these emerging kind of themes, which is, so here's the property line, and this is Jericho Road, and we've put forth and have received support for a buffer, a landscape buffer, street trees that separate pedestrians on the harbor walk promenade, let's say, that kind of generous sidewalk from the vehicle. And that is both a safety thing and also will be able to manage stormwater more sustainably with that feature. We are also proposing landscape buffers on the north and south side of the site, really to be respectful of the neighbors. And then the parking, emerging, the parking really belongs adjacent to the marina. One thing, again, that I've noted we've been hearing, people really responded well to this naturalized shoreline edge. So that it was, again, more sustainable, resilient, not just a riprap edge, but was more naturalized with pockets of planting, it's softer, and just really designed as a nature-based solution to this edge, which, again, as we've talked before, makes this project eligible for some grants. And then small craft water tie-ups that we're exploring, again, with the boardwalk that are very popular, and maybe they're not steps. Again, we have to get into the details with this project, but understanding, yes, this view to the lighthouse is really important. And then the pavilion being more in the middle of the site, and this open kind of continuous lawn view from Hatherley Road. So that's a number of things. I want to touch on them, kind of everything I've already kind of said multiple times tonight, kind of just diagrammed on a plan. And again, we're going to be talking about this more on Tuesday. We have a session at 11 a.m. at the library, and then a session at 7 p.m. And this will be out on a table so people can scribble it all up or talk to us about it, and we can dig into it more there. Because Josh is here tonight, I want to touch on universal design. And as I kind of mentioned, we are working through, pushing and pulling elements as we grade the site. We're designing the grading and drainage and whole shoreline design, bringing it up, making the site more resilient, the whole kind of community that more resilient. Jericho Road, minimizing flooding. We are, of course, adhering to the Americans with Disabilities Act from the early 90s, which requires that, say, ramps be less than 8 1/3% slope, that slope walks be less than 5, and so ramps have handrails, slope walks don't, they're a little flatter. And so there's all the code requirements as a landscape architect to design this whole park to be accessible. But, we're now 30 years past ADA. We are implementing principles of universal design. We are looking at creating an inclusive park. And as part of that, those principles are laid out right here on this slide, making sure this park is welcoming, it's safe and appealing for all users of all abilities, physical or otherwise. Make sure it's flexible, it's simple and intuitive. And a lot of this comes into the details, which, again, that's what Paul was mentioning, that the CPC funding will allow this project to progress through the design process to bid documents, and it's through that whole process that we get the designers get the details right, so that this is a universe again, this is a park that meets all the universal design principles and is inclusive for all. So I just want to emphasize that this evening. And that whole process is kind of laid out right here. It takes time for the design team, for all the disciplines, to move through that design process to produce final construction documents, so the park be built by the contractor, put out to bid. And so as this project is moving through that design process, this is the same slide we looked at last month. It just we've kind of grayed out months, January and February, because here we are in early March. But as we kind of talked about before, there is a fairly extensive permitting process, environmental permitting process we're going through at the same time. We're going through the development of the construction document. So I just want to kind of call that out. Where we are now is, of course, this summary of the online questionnaire and the public info sessions on Tuesday, and kind of from this point, in the next couple of weeks, we will have that emerging concept that Paul mentioned. We are also this month having conversations with permitting agencies, these pre-application meetings, to just vet our emerging concepts with those folks, so that we're set up in a good shape for moving efficiently through the environmental permitting process. And also GZA specialists who have grant writing specialists, and so they'll be helping us identify when to kind of pull the trigger on what grant application in the coming months. And then this summer would be when the geotechnical investigation is happening, as well as kind of the building demolition assessment. So the assessment on what it would mean to demo the building, it would also happen this summer. So that would put final design specifications. Again, we're looking at the end of next year to wrap that up for construction happening early, spring 2025. So with that, just want to preview the public info session board that we've developed, and we'll have a presentation on Tuesday, a much shorter presentation than this one, that really actually goes over the whole entire process for anyone who has not been part of or heard about this Tier 44 project at all. So we'll give a kind of much broader overview in shorter time, and then we'll have individual stations with Paul, with Corey, myself, Leanne, Madeline, some other folks, so we can have one-on-one conversations on Tuesday. And again, that's at the library community room from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Tuesday, so like a lunchtime session. The presentation will start at 11, and then the evening, for those who can't come in the middle of the day but can come in the evening, we'll be there at 7. We'll do the presentation at 7. We'll be there 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesday, again at the library in the community room. So Paul, that is it for the presentation. So I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thanks, Christine. Could you put the emerging concept slide up again? So just a couple of points I wanted to add here. So this doesn't show restrooms. We will have restrooms.
Yeah.
Also, we'll have historic, artistic, cultural features. We'll have family features. We want to, as you said, Christine, it's a point of emphasis for us. This is a new activity on this property. We want to be respectful of our neighbors. We've got residents immediately to the south. We had a meeting earlier today with the Copley Wolf team, and just again, it's a point of emphasis that the grading and other aspects and elements will be to do no harm to that property. We're not going to shift, flows from the Pier 44 property over to our neighbors. When we design the waterfront features, we're not going to facilitate access down and around onto the neighbor's property. So we'll, that's a point of emphasis, and we'll do our very best to be good neighbors. Let me open it up to Howie and Josh and Corey. Any other comments or questions, and then ask for any comments and questions from the public.
I just had a quick question in regarding to the schedule of events. If you go back to that slide, it was the kind of Gantt chart. I thought it might be helpful to have like an ADA design review, maybe in there. You may be going through it already, but just to have just a review, just to make sure nothing gets missed, I guess.
Yeah, I think maybe with the Commission for Disabilities, or who would be at that, who would be part of that review? Do you
Corey,
imagine?
Corey, who would that be? You have an ADA officer with the town.
Yeah, the building commissioner is, the ADA officer, but it could be inclusive of the Commission on Disabilities as well as the building commissioner.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see anything in there, and it might be underneath engineering and design concept development. I just was kind of pointing it out. I was just reading through it all and just wondering if there was something for ADA compliance or the universal access principles. So
Yeah, that whole kind of line item, you're right, there's not a lot of detail there, but that does include a number of these interim, let's say, text for essentially submissions through the schematic design process, the design development process, and through the construction documents, where the town will be working very closely with the town. They will be reviewing what we're designing so far. But I think if, there's interest from your team and others willing to kind of work with us on that whole process, and I think that would be wonderful.
sure, sounds good.
Howie, anything?
Well, yeah, in preparation for next Tuesday's meeting, and you just hit a few things about the neighbors and being kind to the environment around there. Who is going to run this meeting? Who is going to set the stage in a general view before we drill down into the details of this is what we're doing, this is how it's going to lay out, here are the overall general concepts. What are we trying to do? Who's going to run that part of the meeting?
I think, Christine, you plan to cover that in your overview.
I
can
do.
mention it as well.
Yeah. So Howie, I'm going to give again the presentation to kick it off, which will include just the full interview, the project history, all of that. But Paul will be. Thank you, Paul, in advance for kind of manning a station about specifically the project history to dig into kind of the context of this project. Corey is going to have a station that's focused on the permitting of funding, Leon on the pavilion design, myself on the site design, and Madeline on the programming. But yeah, does that answer your question, Howie? Any other thoughts?
Well, not exactly. We have plenty of detail here, and everyone that's been working on this project is extremely well versed. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. And I used to do presentation of Fortune 500 companies. What I feel is missing for the general public is kind of lay the groundwork on a macro level as to what's going on, what we're envisioning and why, and then drop down to the detail as appropriate. Because I could see people starting off, well, how much is this going to cost? And we don't know that yet. But that's the way the public thinks, you know, what is this? How does it work? What does it mean to me? And what is it going to cost us? So anyway, I'm not trying to point at anything in particular other than how do we set the stage here for the discussion to make it very meaningful for the people that will be attending so they can assimilate what's going on. And again, you have all the detail and it's phenomenal in pictures, but I think sometimes you've got to set that stage for the general public. It's just my comments.
Yeah, Howie, I agree. I like where are we headed? I think that's what you're talking about, just kind of an overview, and then you drill down from there.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh.
Any questions from the public? Corey, any questions?
No, thanks.
Okay, I think we're done with that. Anything else, Christine, your team?
No, I think how we're going to take your point and develop our slide deck accordingly, making sure we appropriately set the stage for those first few slides. And to be clear, Tuesday's meeting is not digging into the details of the online survey, but Paul, Corey, our team is planning to have that the slides responding to the outreach kind of running after the presentation when we have the sessions set up. Just have that data kind of just running on the projector. So again, to Howie's point, that that presentation will be more of a broader overview to set the stage before we go into the stations. So that's it from my team. We're excited for Tuesday, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Christine. And I just wanted to mention all the great work we've gotten from Copley Wolf team, all the team. It's really great, and I think the survey. We were all pleased to see the survey results and responses, and it shows a lot of interest, and a lot of people, want this to be a success. Next item is outreach. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. We've been giving presentations to lots of groups. I keep a running list, and we've had about 50 meetings so far. Howie presented at the Waterways Commission last night, and the Waterways Commission will be supporting the proposal going forward, and we'll communicate that to the select board. So that's really appreciated. And we'll continue with our outreach and make sure we talk to as many people as we can. Next, any reports from commissioners? Howie, anything to report? I jumped in and took your thunder there in the Waterways Commission.
No, I think that's the long and short of it. The commission agreed that this is a project they want to support, and they will write the appropriate memo to the Board of Selectmen endorsing it.
Great. And then I presented to the Economic Development Commission, which is my liaison, last month, and then we'll have an agenda item for March asking the EDC to take a formal position supporting the proposal. Josh, anything you want to report?
I have nothing to report. I'm impressed. This is a very exciting project, so it's just great to be a part of it. So it's great.
Thank you, Josh. All right, public comment. Any comment from the public? Great, hearing none. We're ready to adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion.
Second, any comment, discussion? All in favor, say aye. And I can see video, doing a roll call. I see Howie, myself, and Josh all saying aye. Great, we are done. Again, appreciate all the work, appreciate the interest. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm really pleased with the progress we're making. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see many of you March 7th.
Thank you.